Hey everybody, BTO Pro here, and I'm back on haxHooks. So, had something interesting, just going to record it. Honestly, I thought about it 2 seconds ago. We'll see what happens. So, kind of one of our early elements that we worked on as a group was just kind of trying to envision, like, all right, so we've got buttons and icons, like what can we make? And one of the super basic things we made when playing with just data binding as an idea is task list. Now, we haven't really implemented task list anywhere to my knowledge. I think it's in maybe like one course that we use. But so to see what task list does in the context of hacks currently. So we got task list, right? I can pick something else, pick task list, takes over, and it's got this really obnoxious UX pattern. But it's a result of we started out and we said, hey, everything happens over on this side, and that's where the editing takes place. And then in context, right, we have to get that data binding. So it's about getting, our hacks elements object model, which is effectively like a VDOM. So we basically take the element in the page, convert it into a virtual DOM version of itself, and then convert it into the data on the side panel, and then back again. So there's kind of this bridge element, if you want to think of it that way, sitting there between this that you don't see, so that when you type in one side, virtual for standardization, back into the DOM. So we're always writing directly to the DOM, but it goes through kind of this like little bridge. Okay. So as a result of that, we end up having this, right? I want to add fields to do modifications here. I've got to make a clunky form, right? And why? Well, because that's an array. So we've got this great headless form system, and UX is still just like type in the side, and it's kind of annoying. It's nice that you could do it that way, but it'd be great if you could just add things directly. That would be way better now, wouldn't it? So what we're going to do then is attempt to do that. So, all right, I've got my list. We've got a map function. This is running in LitElement, right? So in order to do this correctly in LitElement, if you're not familiar, so I've got static get properties in my LitElement. We wrap in a superclass. It's schema behaviors. It just does some nice little OER schema additions automatically. That's where you get OER task, right? So maybe we do have a reason for doing it this way. It's just that we want the user to know that they are semantically putting tasks together, but we're writing into the page language for a data mining robot to come by, and the output of that transaction of just type in this field and you're good to go is this nice clean table that they can't mess up. We don't want users to mess stuff up. So let's see if we can make it so they can mess stuff up. I haven't done this before. This is a concept I'm playing with live, so you can see the way that my brain works. So I've started working on a haxHook. I showed in past example, we got a haxHook that goes active element changed. So haxHook is going to fire anytime that this element is made active or an operation Hax cares about in this context of this tag in the page happens. So we're going to care that active change. So whenever this is clicked on, we're going to set a variable. We're going to call it hack state. And actually, you know what? Let's not. Let's call it edit mode. It's a little more pervasive. And then we're going to take edit mode and we're going to make it a property. So we're going to do type boolean. Whoa, caps lock's on. Boolean. We're going to do reflect true. Why not? And we're going to do attribute edit mode, if I can type. So what that last part, these last two do is this will make it available as a CSS selector that we are in edit mode, and it'll allow it to say edit hyphen mode. So technically a developer implementing task list by themselves, I don't know why you would, other than for a hello world demonstration, you could just write edit hyphen mode and there's some state change of some kind. Okay, so just by doing that and tying into this haxHook, which we implement there. All right, we've got that wired up. So now we're going to be able to peg to the state change whenever that happens, do stuff internal. Now, in multiple choice, I demonstrated this inline context menu thing. Well, I've cleaned it up since I previously showed. I actually showed I was doing a dynamic insert of an element with event binding into a slotted area. Instead, I wanted to constrain it a bit. So now you actually just get you get the object still, and you could do that append blah, blah, blah. Or now there's a custom element buttons, which implies these are the custom buttons for this element. So if as long as you supply an icon callback and a label, it's going to build you a little UI element. Now, to demonstrate this fact, because I'm going to implement it here, is multiple choice. And we get this, and we can now add and remove as we see fit. Now, I could just search for multiple choice and dump it in the page, right? Ignoring that. I just like doing the typing thing. So, okay, so that's what we're going to end up getting if we implement this. And then we can have events with it. So let's just directly copy that functionality. This is stuff like this is where abstractions come from, to be perfectly honest, in my head, right? We probably can start to abstract some of this into a superclass in the near future to simplify it even more, but it's pretty clean at the moment. We'll see. All right, so inline context menu, which means I have to implement this haxHook. So we're going to add that haxHook, right? I already had it there. Okay. And so now we've got element changed and a menu to show up, right? In the same vein, we're going to say add an item, remove an item. So it's going to be add task and remove task, right? And we're going to do basically the same thing here within certain parameters. So there's task, link, and a name. It's tasks instead of answers. This is oddly similar, actually. Did not expect this, to be perfectly honest. All right. So, okay, now we've got link and name. All right. So we're going to do link, and the link is going to be, actually, you know what? We're not going to supply a link. We're just going to supply a name. And the name, that's the name of the task. See, because if there's no link, it doesn't go anywhere, right? So it checks for a link. So we're just going to leave link off of there. And then so name is going to be new to do. You do this. Okay, so do this. All right, so when you click add a task, we're going to get a task. And you know what? Let's just put a little CSS selector in here to demonstrate how that works. So I do edit mode. And so now when we are in an edit mode state, now this is just the task list itself. We're going to say, I don't know, border is 1 pixel solid black, dotted, something like that. And we'll just do, 2, and it's, we'll do outline. I don't care because I'm going to disable that anyway. It's just to illustrate. So, okay. So as you scroll down, we've got our task list. I click, we get our dotted line outline because the state is bridging in. I click away, goes away, right? So we're pegging the CSS of our web component to the state management of Hax. Hax is influencing this element. Element doesn't give a crap about Hax showing up. It has its own internals and way of operating. So I want to add to that. You do these things, updates over here, and then I can modify from there. And if I need to do more advanced functionality, I can add a link. Cool. Let's make it so we can just add them there or edit these, right? That'd be really useful if I could just edit them directly. That would be really cool. So we can fake it at first. I think we can actually do better than just faking it, but for the purpose of this video, not bloating out into an unknown debug session, let's take edit mode, peg that to content editable state of these items. So that's stupid easy. So if we say content editable equals this dot edit mode, and for if you put the question mark in front of it, it says this is a Boolean operation. We'll see if that's enough, to be perfectly honest. Let's also do it with this. I don't know why there's a span in here, to be 100% honest. That doesn't even, let's get rid of the span. I don't know why I would do that. Let's make, let's just do it that way. Because I'm not doing any styling in here anyway. I don't understand why I had that. Okay, so let's do like this. All right, that's much cleaner. Whoops, made a space. Okay, so we're going to put this into a content editable state, the individual pieces of the shadow root. Now, I said this is going to be faked. It is for the time being. So I'm going to go over to here, click, becomes editable, click away. We're good. Now, it's not going to retain that value, right? You can still see over here that this is name plan for world domination. Now I can click in here, things, cool. I can do that all I want. If I hit next, they're not real, see? Okay, and the reason for that is because I have and this is something I've had to solve over and over and over again in the early days of HAX development. You'll find any number of blog posts saying, do not use content editable for content operations. Tons of them saying, do not use WYSIWYG. At Medium, we don't use, every editor says not to use it. I'm saying, use it, but don't trust it. So content editable and toggling the state, right? Now when I click away, we save. This is not editable, right? So we're pegged to the state of HAX. All right, now I dive back in. This is semi-transformational, be perfectly honest, as far as what we'll be able to do, as I showed previously, right? Because I can then have the element be aware that it is in a state to basically supply its own editing UI, whether that's an entirely other element that is wrapping it to do that UI, or like I'm showing here. Now, I can get out of sync with state management, right? Because this is LitElement writing the because things. However, it is in an area that is modifiable. So that's a little dangerous. How best to solve that? It could be with keyboard down, or it could be mutation observers. Mutation observers are they're cheap and easy. So let's look for this dot observe is typically the pattern I use with it. Here we go. So there's a mutation observer, and in the mutation observer in HAX itself, anytime there's a change record of any kind, right, then we have to process the DOM node. But we get this. This is the part I wanted to go to. Mutation observers, you can do this nice, like, hey, what are you monitoring for? So let's just figure out how to forcibly generate change records pegged to state, but disabling when we don't care about it anymore. How could I ever do that? Well, it's not that hard. So we have this, right? HAX active element is changing this. Now we can do, there it is, updated. And on updated, what we're going to do is we're going to say if this prop name, actually, not this, it's just prop name. If prop name equals edit mode. Okay, so let's do if this dot observer. I like to do hyphen observer and not this prop name, which is effectively saying dot edit mode. So if we have that, otherwise, I'll have to break that out a little bit more, but let's go through these mutations. I really just want a simple series of mutations so that we can figure out if this is doing anything. Okay, so there's a simple mutation, and let's get rid of this aspect of it. We'll just say console.log node. And I don't know if it's going to be added or not, but we'll see. So child list and subtree. What we're observing is this, the thing itself. Now, I don't want to observe this. I want to observe the shadow root. So we're going to try to do just the shadow root because these do not bubble up. And we'll do dot query selector, and we'll just do something called wrapper. So wrapper is something we're going to add in here to wrap the whole thing so that we can easily listen for changes on this. All right, and we'll do ID equals wrapper. Take the div off of there. So we still have the exact same element, right? And I'm not going to style that in any way. It's still block because host is display block anyway, so it's not a big deal. So let's do the mutation observer is going to be on our wrapper. Okay, let's look at this dot observe. I think in our disconnected callback, yes, we get rid of it. And so every time we become editable, right? So we're not editable, and then I'm going to do just a double check if There's an observer. Then we're going to disconnect that observer. So anytime we go out of edit mode, we're going to kill the observer. Anytime we come into edit mode, we're going to attach an observer. So we're only going to observe changes within this local element as we have activated it via hacks and are actively making changes. So we're just going to console.log what's coming out of that. And then we got one more, I think, if I can parse through all of these nestings of nestings of nestings. Ah, there's the one that was one of them that was missing, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I can't. Okay. Node. That one closes that off. That closes that off. I could have sworn it was I just needed one of those. So that closes. No. That closes that off. Let's see what's happening. And then this closes that one off. Okay. That closes that part off. This was a mistake. There we go. Okay. So we're going to attach the observer. And the mutation observer is going to notify us anytime there's a change in the child list or the subtree, which means anything below this thing. So let's just see what that does. Hopefully it generates a bunch of console logs, but only after we've activated it. Now it's on the page, no observation. That's awesome. Click, focus is gained. Hello. So now as I make changes to this, we get change records. Now, I don't want to do it just on added nodes. I think the way I want to operate is I want to say anything has changed. I don't care what the mutation is, right? I just care that there are mutations. So let's do console.log on the mutations. I don't care what it is because I have to then read that data back in and translate it from a state management perspective into LitElement's properties. I know I said I was going to do this on camera, but I actually don't think it's that hard. So now when I type, we get mutation records. And then I hit enter, mutation record, enter, mutation record, mutation record. Okay, and then hopefully on this one, that means I need a better mutation observer, which I believe if we go to mutation observer, character data, I think, yeah. So we're going to do character data. And character data is going to, I think, get every single one of those keystrokes, to be perfectly honest. So this is a very aggressive mutation observer, but we want to know on every single change here. Okay, so cool. Excellent. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to reprocess the shadow root and take that data as the inner HTML and stuff it back in the variable. The variable will then stamp it back into place. Now I will have to put in something that blocks it and says like, hey, don't keep just doing this endlessly. But all right, so whenever we get a mutation observer or a mutation, okay, if, and I've done this I've had to do this in hacks before. So if we'll put in a place like a magic variable that basically just locks it. So we'll say if no lock, then this dot refresh state management, or actually be like align state. Okay, so we just do it. I don't care how many mutation observers there are. In fact, as part of this, I need to do I do this as well just for safety. This dot lock state, okay, and then we're going to do this dot lock state equals set timeout 0. This is just in case you get a whole bunch of mutations. I don't expect that to happen, but it is technically possible, I think. So that will make sure we only have one, and then whenever we don't lock it, then we want to lock it again. Or sorry, whenever we okay, no, it's like this. So whenever so if we do have a lock, then we want to lock it again. So unlock it basically. So what we're going to do in state alignment is we're going to make changes that would invoke more mutation observers or observations, but we need to kill those records. Otherwise, we'll just infinitely loop. So, all right, we're going to make this align state function. And align state is going to say this dot shadow root dot query selector, and we want to target the heading. So let's make sure we can actually just get the heading in state alignment, and then I'll do the other one off camera. Okay, so there's that H3. So we are going to say query selector, and we're getting the H3 dot inner text. And we are going to set name to that. However, right before we do that, otherwise we'll infinite loop, we need to do this dot lock. Lock equals true. And that, I think, is enough to achieve it. Now, I need to, obviously, the unordered list is vastly more complicated to translate back to an array for this instance. So let's see if this does the initial thing. I hope it will. So, all right, we'll save, go to this, world domination. Now let's look at it like that. Yeah, now if it's right, I think you'll see it update there. It keeps oh, that's interesting. It keeps resetting where the cursor placement is. Okay, so that does mean it's working, because watch, if I type a character and I start typing, my characters get pushed to the front. That's because LitElement is running and overwriting what I have doing the update. So that would be a good reason to do like a polling function, if you will. So we're not going to do this until we don't get any key presses for, I think every second is probably reasonable, at least for the moment. Now I'm just going to do, if you have a key down, then I'll keep resetting it is the way I end up doing that. But all right, so we're in here and we say for all the things in the world that we want to achieve and yet still maintain state management. Spelled incorrectly. Cursor went away. That means it worked. So then we look back at this and we've got that value updated. The other reason I know whether or not the value is accurate is I can go to let's click away and go back to it. So if I click away and then back, it stays, and you notice that name updated. Now, if I want name to update in real time, just so we can verify this is actually doing the thing I claimed it is, we can do reflect true on the name. And if I do reflect true on the name, it should update that value on the fly so that you can actually see it in the DOM. So now when I go down to world domination, right click, okay. Now you should see it update in the name area instantly. But the instant is not until we've crossed that threshold, right? So while I'm still typing, and that would actually be a reason for like a key down. I think I do this in Hax core, that I say when we have a key down, we need to make sure we set certain flags to not tick things off. Like, hey, we're still typing. Wait till we're done with our input. And so I can lower the delay on that resetting the property so long as I actually have the key down. Now the other way I could achieve this without this like set timeout kind of silliness is I do a mutation observer and I just say any mutation is going to invoke this dot. There are changes. Okay, so there's changes. There just are, right? Because you visually are seeing the thing. You don't care when it goes to the data. So in this methodology, and I think this will work pretty well. Actually, this works better, at least for this instance. What we'll do for this type of a way of operating would be, I'm going to tie into the Hax state. Okay, so we're going to go to edit state has changed. And prior to edit state changing, we're going to test that value instead of doing this lock silliness. Okay, so we're just going to say if this dot, there are changes, then we're going to realign the state. And as part of state realignment, there are changes is going to be false. So then we'll unset what there was previously. haxHooks, we go there. Let's just make this look nicer. Save. And now we're going to make our happy-go-lucky changes and have a content editable user experience without interruptions, right? We're making all the changes. Then I click away, and then it applies them. So I'm going to take much more time, obviously, and make this work for the list items themselves. But I should be able to, through a similar methodology, take the ordered list, convert it into data, and then take that data, parse through it, and turn it back into a task array. And then I will have perfect data alignment, whether you are editing in context, whether you're clicking the button to add items, or whether you're working in the advanced panel. This is about to get very fun. Catch you later.